Hello everybody, I am Conquering History Games, and welcome to a new campaign on the channel. Today we're going to be playing some Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiserreich on beta 0.10.1, Blood on the Yangtze. At the same time as this video is going up, there should be another Hearts of Iron 4 game in HOI4, where I'm playing as a different country in China, so be sure to go check that out, and they'll both be getting updated periodically at a schedule that I will probably have posted in my, a scheduled time that I probably would have posted in my community tab by the time that this video is going up. So, today we're going to be playing as the Qing. And just up front, I'm not entirely sure we're going to actually unpause the game in this one, because there's a whole lot that I want to talk about in terms of giving context for playing as the Qing. And I have generally... By the way, I'm using a lot of my old map mods. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Or suggest other map mods that you like in Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiser, or yeah, just in Hearts of Iron 4, that you think make the screen look prettier. I'm using mostly the RGFX. Go look up my mods I use for Hearts of Iron 4 video where I explain the mods, because people will often ask what stuff I use. But I'm using the white font is back and things like that. Anyway, before we get started, so there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about in regards to the context of the Qing, so you can understand really the weight of this dynasty that is has technically unified China, except for Manchuria. Look at this huge Qing Empire. Things are amazing, and they're always going to be amazing, but not really. They've been bad. They've been unsteady, and we're not entirely sure if Puyi is the man for the job, but maybe he can become one. So, the first thing, though, is let's talk about the Manchus. Puyi is a Manchu. The Manchus are an ethnic group that make up China. I believe even today they are the fourth biggest ethnic group in China, although certainly a minority compared to, say, the Han. And back then, they still were very much a minority. As the name implies, they come from the Manchuria region of China. And this dynasty that they've created, the Qing, also earlier known as the later Jin, later, it's kind of funny, were this... They weren't Han Chinese. They weren't from the heart of China, and in some ways, you can kind of say that these are outsiders who ended up on the throne. So now this particular dynasty of the Qing are descended from a clan known as the Asingyoro, who waged war for many decades with the dynasty of the Ming for control of China, and then even after the Qing took control of Beijing and the throne, which itself was a decades-long process. There continued to be several more decades of the Qing securing the rest of China, expanding China, and getting it to the borders that it would be at when the European powers started to, in a more serious way, interfere into the Chinese affairs. I'm not going to get into all the details of why the Qing were able to take control. The fastest way I can say it, it was a combination of successful military campaigns, defections from Ming military generals, and systemic financial and societal problems that the Ming dynasty was dealing with, some of which were self-created, some of which were just bad luck. So, for example, there was what I think is considered to be the deadliest earthquake in human history in the Jiangxi area of China. That was in the late 1500s, so that wasn't right before the Qing took power or anything, but, when you have an earthquake that kills almost 900,000 people, that's going to do serious damage to your society, even when we're talking about Chinese population that can relatively absorb those kinds of losses. Anyway, so these Asingyoro eventually become the Qing dynasty, and officially they start ruling China in the year 1644, and they continue to do so until the Xinhai Revolution of 1911, which I've been talking about in some of the other campaigns, and probably if you've been playing a lot of China, you understand it by now, but basically that's the revolution that overthrows the Qing in 1911 and starts taking us into the era of the republics, the Republic of China, the Kuomintang, the various warlords, and all this stuff that we see here now in this alternate Kaiserreich history. what was I gonna talk about? So Puyi, who we're just calling him for Puyi for short. That's kind of, he would have been referred to as the Zhuangtong Emperor, but we'll just call him Puyi for simplicity's sake. He had become emperor in 1908, and depending on how you count it, ends up abdicating in 1911 or in 1912, and that's effectively the end of emperors in China. Yeah, there was like a little temporary restoration, which I think literally lasted less than 2 weeks in the year 1917. And then historically, the Japanese propped him up as a puppet emperor during the 1930s and 40s as part of their attempts to conquer China. You can read actually some memoirs that he wrote while he was in prison. It's sort of an interesting life. I'm trying to think how to describe it. He's a really interesting person who kind of had a boring life, if that makes so much sense. He was effectively a prisoner for a lot of his life, just being doted on by servants here and there. But whether it was in China or Manchuria or the Soviet Union, he just did end up spending a lot of his life as a puppet and a prisoner, in a luxurious prisoner, I guess you could say, before he eventually passed away in the 1960s. So what we're going to try to do in this campaign is turn Puyi into a force to be reckoned with, someone to be remembered down the ages, and unite China properly, truly, under his rule. Now, I admittedly have not played a full campaign of Qing on my own yet. I have heard that there's been some trouble with annexing parts of China, some little bugs. I don't know the details of that. We'll deal with them as they happen. If need be, if like for some reason I can't annex something even though I defeated them, I might do a console annexation or something. We're going to deal with it on a case-by-case basis, but there's been a couple of patches since the China thing came out, so I trust that it's going to be solved. Anyway, let's take a look at the situation here. So we are a faction leader of the Qing Empire, so look at that. Look at all of China that's in front of us, so that's awesome. Things are going to be great forever. Only people we have to fight is the Feng Tian, right? Nothing can go wrong. Oh yeah, let's actually talk about Puyi and see if there's any details here that I missed up. Son of Heaven, the Zhuangtong Emperor. He has little power, has never really possessed any since his birth in 1906. Yet deposed at the age of 5, he has returned to the throne as a condition of the German intervention in China. So this is talking about Kaiserreich history now. A move detested by the general population, with day-to-day governance largely handled by the civil government in Beijing. He has spent the last decade idly sitting in the Forbidden City, occupying his days with tennis matches and calligraphy. But the Zhuangtong Emperor may secretly harbor ambitions to restore China and his dynasty to the greatness they enjoyed centuries ago. And I think it would not be a stretch to say that China and the Qing Empire have very much fallen, having lost several wars to European powers. Of course, there's the Century of Humiliation. In the Kaiserreich world, we've got German interference, which was effectively the only reason that the Qing did not fall. The Zhili clique is who in reality, although technically the Zhili clique are paternal autocrats here, and we are the Harmony Association, but the Zhili clique at the very least have a significant amount of pull in Qing, and that's something we're going to have to deal with because it's Puyi who should be charged. He is the emperor, not the Zhili clique, not Wu Peifu, not those generals that are in that clique. It's supposed to be Puyi, so we're going to deal with that. We have an overwhelming national debt right now. Oh wait, did I actually go over the so because of the fractured, I didn't go over the fractured empire, I think. So the Qing Empire theoretically controls all of China outside of Manchuria, Tibet, and Mongolia. In reality, the emperor's power barely extends outside the walls of the Forbidden City, while President Cao Kun is largely powerless beyond the assembly floor. Wu Peifu, the real power behind the throne, is more interested in consolidating his power base in Luoyang and balancing military cliques off of each other than improving the country in any meaningful way. So that's a whopping 15% consumer good factories we're dealing with, as well as reducing the recruitable population factor by 10%. We have an overwhelming national debt. China's struggle to develop its national economy has resulted in an enormous trade debt fronted by the Beijing government. Industrial machinery is imported at a staggering cost, and what little domestic manufacturing does exist lacks the quality and quantity to compete on the world market. China's main exports are thus mostly agricultural, and even cash crops fetch low prices compared to widely imported foreign luxuries like cigarettes and radios. This problem is only exacerbated by widespread institutionalized corruption and a thriving opium trade. So that's going to reduce our construction speed, and our trade deal opinion factor is down. We have a Zhili leadership crisis. The advanced age of many Zhili commanders is a worrying trend that must be rectified soon, lest our army be entirely controlled by old men. And that just lowers our organization by 10%. Not good. Peking Commission influence level. The Peking Commission is Germany's primary agent for exerting control over areas directly controlled by Beijing. They directly fund the Prosperity League, a lobbying group that pushes for adoption of German industrial methods and free trade, while also holding several seats in the assembly. Modifiers tied to the popularity of the Market Liberal Party, which is the Prosperity League. This is kind of similar to how over here in Fengtian, although I admittedly have not played Fengtian yet. I love Fengtian. It was one of my favorite nations to play even before the rework, but I've been deliberately forcing myself to hold off on it because I want to really, really understand China before I play as them. So Fengtian has the Concordia Association, which is referencing their influence from Japan. In that same way, we have the Prosperity League, which references the influence from Germany, which has a descriptor here. The PL is mainly the party of the new industrialist and banker class, who are suspicious of the HA's corruption, and that's the Harmony Associations, corruption and inefficiency. Germany, also wary of Wu's ambition. I probably should talk about who Wu is. Let's assign... Nice, we got 23 whole divisions. So the Wu is referring to Wu Piefu. We're going to digress here for a second to read his thing. Born in Shandong to a merchant family, Wu entered the Baoding Military Academy and quickly rose through the ranks of the new Beiyang army. Following the collapse of the Republic of China in 1916, he allied himself with Feng Guozhou's Zhili clique, and following Feng's death in 1919, he rose to dominate the clique, leading it to victory over its main rival, the Fengtian clique, in 1928, despite being betrayed by his former ally Feng Yongjiang. But check out my Chinese progress reports where I go over the Kaiserreich history of that. Basically, it's why Qing is still around and Fengtian didn't manage to take the throne. During these turbulent years, he was mentored by Cao Kun, former and future president of the assembly, who taught him the intriguing and scheming skills he used to seize control over the government. Although opposed to the reimposition of the Manchu monarchy by Germany, Wu has quickly adapted the Zhili clique to China's new governmental structure, sidelighting the Manchu and ensuring that he and his allies dominated nearly every facet of government. A token opposition was allowed to exist, but Wu truly controls the government. Here's some important notes. Wu reportedly owns the world's largest diamond, but has refused to allow anyone to verify this claim. Was once renowned for hanging a portrait of George Washington behind his desk, but due to the ongoing political turmoil in the United States, he has replaced this with a photograph of Bismarck. A great political thinker, just like Washington, Wu said to a visiting journalist, ignoring any questions about his relationship with Germany. Alright. So that's who Puyi is. Okay, we went over so we're getting political power reduction and production efficiency cap reduction by 15% each. Coming over here to the decisions, there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's like the reintegrating of concessions. This is just like with the other Chinas. I could spend political power both upfront and daily to core areas. Although we kind of start in a relatively good position, because even with our manpower modifiers, we still got over 1 million men in reserve already. So we've got that. Army reforms, again, something all the Chinese have. It's not as bad as others, but it is still a minus 60% to division defense. This is what I wanted to talk about, though, in regards to Germany. Our current German influence is 15%. There is stuff that I could take here that just costs me different things. So, for example, I can encourage domestic production, which will increase my consumer good factories for 2 months, but at the end of it, market liberalism will go down 8%. And remember, market liberalism is a reflection of German influence, so I could reduce that. Same thing with doing anti-German boycotts. I could start doing that now. In fact, if I was a min-maxer, I probably should start doing this right now. I am not going to, because in I guess you could say in terms of role play, the Zhili clique is still a dominant force here in our Qing country, and they're fine with the German interference, so they're not going to encourage anti-German sentiments. I probably should actually say what my goal here is we're going to be going for the Manchu restoration to have Puyi be a proper leader, which is going to get rid of this focus tree. We're going to get a brand new focus tree when that's done. But there are certain events that we have to have go have to do correctly in order to make the Manchu restoration successful. Like, for example, there's just decisions you have to do down here, which are gonna, like, when it's over, you're only gonna have one of these 3 paths available to you. So I have to have the deal with unrest path available to me in order to do the Manchu restoration. So there's a long series of things we'll have to do. Okay, anything else we want to cover? So we've got 23 divisions, a lot of militia and things like that. Yeah, these national divisions are actually kind of good, all things considered. Wait a minute. Oh, can I change their color? You know, I like them having the German helmets for now. Okay. So we will... It doesn't really matter who we put in charge of. Yeah, we get Liu Minggu. Put on the border with Fengtian. Okay. Research slots. We get 3. Nice. Let's go for the better infantry equipment. Always want electronical and mechanical engineering, and we'll do the basic machine tools as well. Some free civilian factories for right now. We're just going to build infrastructure in Beijing. None of that's going to last very long anyway. Let's build some convoys. Actually, wait a minute. And some submarines. Okay, that works. The League of 8 provinces could almost assume leadership of the faction. That's not going to be a problem. Any other things in the decisions I wanted to talk about? There's this legation council thing where there's voting on certain stuff. We're just ignoring that. We're gonna leave it, so it's not a thing. All right. Only have 2 civilian factories right now, so I'm not going to trade for the other resources. Only one thing we're allowed to take: the Year of the Rat. As the nation prepares for the celebrations of the Chinese New Year on January 24th, Assembly President Cao Kun and Wu Puifei have begun drafting a speech to mark the 4th year of concerted anti-trade debt efforts. The largest issue currently facing the central government, the Zhili clique, hopes to tackle this problem, even as whispers of unrest emerge from the League of 8 provinces. It's only going to take 2 weeks. Some of this stuff is going to go really, really fast, as we will see. I'm going to try to get some more divisions queued up. Not necessarily going to use them just yet, but I deploy them just yet. Okay, the Great Qing, just a little more context. So internationally, the Zhili versus Fengtian War in 1928 was an end of 4 years of chaos and instability. Though Wu Puifei and his northern Zhili clique, remember this is Wu, accepted the return of Manchu monarchy, further German concessions were refused, leading to a cooling of relations. Germany continues to maintain support for the Qing government, but mainly with the aim of ensuring consistent competition with the also supported southern Zhili as part of a larger divide and conquer strategy in China as a whole, as well as in the hopes of gradually building a Chinese bulwark against Japan. So yeah, that kind of sums it up right there. Germany are supporting them, they're also supporting them, and but it's a little dubious because, yeah, the monarchy was German influence, but Wu's stopping it from being too much influence, so that's why. Because I could increase it too. I could bribe, yeah, here we go. So I could do things like entice financial support, which gives me political power, and increases popularity of market liberalism and things like that. In fact, you know what? For roleplay reasons, we're gonna take that, entice the support, which we can't do if Black Friday is going on. And so, like, you know, the German influence is increased, prosperity is up to 20, and things like that. And you know, you guys definitely should take the time to look at these, because you know, they give you details on what everybody is. So I guess I actually should read this. So, or hold on, let's do the Great Qing first. Country is more divided than most would prefer. Authority is contested on all sides. Qing enters 1936, largely contained to the North China Plain and at the head of a faltering national order. Okay, so let's actually talk about some of these other groups here. We've got the, so the leftists just don't even matter. Yeah, widespread repression and a lack of any grassroots backing. So there's nobody out here. There's some social democrats, the NCERA or NCERA, while using the name of a Parisian high reformist group, is actually an alliance of 2 more modern reform groups. By the way, all the ones that I'm reading, I believe that, yeah, I think, or at least I'm going to go over from the social democrats to the paternal autocrats, because these are the ones you can go into. I don't think you can become Yi Guangdao as the Qing. I'm going to do that as one of the countries one day, though. Where was I? Yeah, so the first is the Rural Reconstruction Party, led by Liang Shuming and the Harvard and Princeton educated J.C. Jimmy Yen, favoring rebuilding China from the ground up. This group emphasizes the value of the traditional Chinese village as the basic building block of society, rather than the warlord cliques that have dominated China for the last half-century. The second part of the coalition is a loose group of intellectuals inspired to the works of Kang Yue, an ambitious reformer of the late Qing dynasty who advocated for a constitutional monarchy. Following the restoration of Puyi, his works have come back into prominence and are popular among middle-class urban intellectuals. The NCERA want to see an end to warlords and foreign influence in China and a return to a traditional style of decentralized local rule. Next up, we have the social liberals, the Qinyang Zhonghua Dang Young China Party. Inspired by the Young Turks, the YCP is Young Turks, obviously from the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, look them up. The YCP is comprised of officers of Baoding Military Academy and urban intellectuals alienated by the exclusivity and nepotism of Zhili clique. They advocate for the elimination of China's warlords and the establishment of a strong central government, as well as a nationalist agenda which focuses on the abolition of the special privileges and extraterritoriality enjoyed by foreign powers in China. They also wish to see an end of warlords and factionalism and stress a return to a legitimate government in China. While not necessarily in favor of Puyi and the Aisin-Gyoro clan, that's why I was contextualizing them earlier, they also realize they're the best chance at achieving their dream. Next up, the Market Liberals and the Prosperity League. Oh, we already went over that. The Manchu Party, this is the Zhongshe Dang. The Zhongshe Party, more commonly known as the Manchu Party, is a group of Manchu nobles, Qing loyalists, and various Aisin-Gyoro princes. Opposed to Wu's Zhili clique, they favor a return to Qing control over all of China. Unlike more radical factions, they are willing to tolerate warlords and some degree of factionalism, as long as they swear complete and utter loyalty to the emperor. If in power, they would also allow elections, but in a German-style system where the emperor would have ultimate say. Then there's the Harmony Association, which is currently in power. The Harmony Association is a loose collection of Zhili bureaucrats, governors, and hangers-on that represent Wu Peifu and Cao Kun's attempt to present a facade of democratic legitimacy in the Beijing Assembly. Officially, they are a separate political party, but completely divested from the military. Unofficially, however, most realize that the Harmony Association's sham democracy is little more than a half-hearted attempt to cover up the endemic corruption, inefficiency, and waste of the Zhili bureaucracy, which takes us down here to the Zhili clique. While most of the political affairs are handled by the Harmony Association, the military wing of the clique still holds a fair bit of influence over political decision-making. They will never assume direct control and generally work with the Harmony Association, but occasional disagreements are not unheard of. Okay, so plenty of background. Okay. Oh, what's this? Kerensky stuff, observer rights on the Legation Council. You guys can pause and read the legation stuff if you want. For the path we're going, it doesn't interest me, but we got 5 political powers, so that's cool. Alright, the political solution. 1936 finds the powerless assembly on the brink. 5 groups dominate the body, although they have no power in the chamber. The groups that support them are not to be trifled with. The most powerful of these is the Harmony Association, nominally led by President Cao Kun. A depressed alcoholic, true power in the group resides with Wu Peifu, who founded the association as a legitimizing movement to ensure Zhili representation in the assembly. While nominally an independent political party, the Harmony Association's deputies are all former Zhili officers. Following Cao Kun's legally dubious re-election, few believe the group is anything more than a front for Wu to control the country. Prosperity League occupies a... Yeah, we went over that. This leaves 3 parties in opposition: the Manchu Party, the Young China Party, and the New Chinese Empire Reformation Association. I already went over in detail of these. While these 3 groups are in opposition to Wu, he allows them seats in the powerless assembly as a way to legitimize his unpopular regime. Okay. Okay. For the past few years, Wu and Cao have spent most of their political have spent most of their political capital attempting to restructure and reduce the enormous debt of the Qing Empire while theoretically possible. This plan has run into numerous challenges, the chief being a lack of support from the provincial governors. Rumors of instability in the south have further complicated these plans, and Cao Kun is expected to deliver a speech on reducing the national debt to the assembly after the New Year celebration later this month. We will await the speech. The sale of the... Hey, he gives us a political power gain. Alright. Sale of the Zigan Railroad. The past few weeks have seen a great deal of economic activity in the League of 8 provinces, the southern conglomerate of provinces ruled by our nominal subordinate, Sun Chuan Fang. That's over here. Even more heavily influenced by German economic support than we are, the League just finished construction on a major railroad, the Zigan Line. Though funded by the Germans, it was largely built by Chinese labor, leading many to hope for a more equitable relationship between German and Chinese in the League, at least in economic affairs. A few days ago, in a surprising move, the AOG publicly announced its plans to purchase and consolidate a number of eastern railways on behalf of their subsidiary group, the Schachtung Eisenbahn Gesellschaft, including this new Zigan route. This move angered many native Chinese residents of the League, who saw the Zigan line as a potential building block in an equal relationship between Europeans and nations. Widespread protests have broken out, inflamed by conspiracies of fraud and embezzlement on the part of Sun's cronies. We need to keep an eye on this. And indeed we shall. In a long, somewhat rambling speech to mark the Chinese New Year, Assembly President Cao Kun addressed the need to restore the glory of the Qing Empire, unite the country, and repay the debt burdening the economy. He outlaid a 3-point plan. Government subsidies and tax cuts would be given to light manufacturing industries, farmers would be granted tax cuts to grow edible plants instead of cash crops, and an increased tax on provincial governors. The speech is met with polite applause. Hey, I get political power, so that's what really matters. We have to take these both. It doesn't really matter. Let's just do the export farming. We do not have the industrial base required to enact large-scale industrial reform. What we do not lack, however, is a large number of peasant farmers. By carefully granting out subsidies to farmers, we can start to nurture a food export system that can alleviate our trade debt. And so it's just going to give us an infrastructure. It doesn't really matter. Okay. German mining companies increased their operations in southern Shanxi. The Shanxi region has always been a good source of coal and useful metals for the empire. Following the Fourth Jili-Fengtian War, we gained direct control of eastern Jiangxi, a slim area of land that used to belong to Yan Xishan's Jiangxi clique. We'll talk about him later. Our ownership of eastern Jiangxi has been the cause of tensions between us and the Jiangxi clique, but for now they are unable to compete with our military strength. Much like the rest of Jiangxi, this area is rich with coal and iron. Multiple German companies took an interest in eastern Jiangxi, and so purchased the coal and iron mines there. These mines sit very close to the border with the Jiangxi clique, but this has not yet been a problem. However, news just came in that these eastern Jiangxi companies are going to increase their mining operations and have presented plans that show some of their mines falling into Jiangxi-controlled territory. We personally do not need to worry about this, but it is likely to cause some problems in the Jiangxi clique, with many peasants feeling robbed that these German companies are taking their mines. We wish them good luck in their business ventures, so they're going to get an event. Okay, so we've almost got 100 political power. Is there anything I want to spend it on? I'll probably just move us to partial mobilization right away. Spend it while you got it. Widespread attacks on foreigners. Following the unrest surrounding the Zigan Railroad, a number of German investors and businessmen have been savagely attacked by rabid anti-foreign mobs. To make matters worse, widespread boycotts of German goods have begun in the south, and this morning reports reached Beijing of bombings of railway stations in Hangzhou and other cities in the central Chinese railway. Transportation is ground to a halt in many regions of the League, and KMT guerrillas have used this opportunity to stage increasingly daring attacks on isolated League garrisons. The German ambassador is demanding accountability. While the League is largely autonomous from our control, we still need to do something. It is referring to this League, by the way, if you didn't know. Zheng Baili and other Jili officials have long pushed to exert greater control over the League and are urging Wu to use this crisis to leverage greater control over the South. Wu is personally uncertain of this, but is currently drafting a telegram to demand accountability from Sun and offer our help should he need it. Instead, of course, is the demand for increased control over League affairs should he accept our help. Let's see what Sun has to say. And Edward VIII has been crowned. There he is. His new portrait. Okay, I wonder what Russia's going to do. Oh! Okay, then. Well, that doesn't mean we're going to get Tsar Wrangle. Could be interesting, though. Could be very interesting. Alright, before I forget, let's switch over to early mobilization. Spend it while you got it. That's what I say about Kaiserreich. Alright, we're just going to read this, and that's going to be it for the day. I know there was so much reading, but things are going to start getting wild in a hurry, especially once the League blows up. The Wuhu incident. Troubling information reached Liaoyang and Beijing this morning. While reports are somewhat contradictory, it appears there was some sort of a massacre of peaceful protesters by League and German troops in the city of Wuhu. Some claim German troops simply mowed down the protesters, while others claim a group of KMT radicals attacked the Germans and League troops first. Whatever the cause, the city has fallen into anarchy and protests have sprung up all over the League. Ironically, at the same time as we received this information, we received a report from Sun claiming he has the situation under control. Some Zhili generals are pushing for a major intervention in the south should the situation deteriorate further, but Wu has yet to take a clear position on the issue. Further is exasperating our problems. An informant we have placed within the NCR claims they have somehow received information on the situation and are planning to give a scathing speech later in the assembly today. Harmony Association officials are attempting to rouse Cao Kun from a drunken stupor and write a counter speech, but we've been caught off guard. Under control, my ass. You see, that's why you got to spend it while you got it in Kaiserreich. That just cost me 30 political power. Okay, that's going to be it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Conquering History Games. In the next episode, I promise things are going to start getting really exciting. I think all this information is great, though. As always, Flame Fang has done a terrific job with all of this. And I also wanted to give a little quick shout-out on Discord. Because I do kind of do a little dry run of some of these countries to make sure I can go down the path that I want to go. But a special shout out to Rie VL of the Kaiserreich and Moe-Reich teams for giving me a hand with figuring certain paths out so I could decide which one I wanted to do. You're great. And yeah, thank you all for joining me. Please be sure to subscribe if you have not already and click the bell so you'll be notified whenever a new video goes on the channel, including the ones for this series. And I'll see you in that next one. Goodbye.